that has supported the flood story. It's just pseudoscience. And scholars, Islamic and Jewish and Christian scholars, have been looking for it and looking for it and looking for it. They even thought they could find proof of the Ark on Mount Sinai. They found nothing. There's nothing proof to show. All we have is some myths about floods that happened at different times in history for societies that lived in river civilizations, because flooding was an everyday part of society then. That's all it is. That's why, and it was about people preparing for floods, storing grain
every day. Why did they tell a story about a great big one?
They didn't. The Gilgamesh doesn't talk about a massive.
Why do we have the great big flood?
It's just the Israelite story. It's the interpretation of the flood myth that went around.
Was before the Israelites.
Exactly, but it wasn't the same story. It's different. What I'm saying is, there are flood myths in all river valley civilizations in different places, and they're just generally about storing grain for floods or preparing for floods, because floods happened. In a river valley civilization, when you got flooded and you weren't prepared, your crops would die, you couldn't reharvest, and people starved. All your houses were made of mud brick and they were destroyed. So there were stories that they told, hey man, prepare for the flood, because if the flood comes and you don't have your grain ready, you're going to die. Everyone's going to die. There's going to be no food. Because flooding happened a lot, especially on the Nile. Flooding was a frequent problem with landslides and constant flooding in the Delta.
Was there a great big one that wiped out a whole bunch of people?
So that's what's wait, Michael, all of these other floods is actually not a surprise. It goes along with a theme in Genesis and other places.
Right, it's not surprising.
Michael, it goes along with a theme in Genesis and other places of, yes, there were these other things, but ours was bigger. Yes, there were these other things, but ours was even bigger. So that's the routine thing.
That's not the theme of Genesis.
Yes, it is.
No. Read up, Michael. Just read about, without looking at from the Israelite interpretation. Just read about other flood myths, and you'll find that they're quite different. It's just the theme is the same. The way that the way that people are flooded.
No, the themes are usually different. You don't remember the theme in Gilgamesh? All right.
I just talking across everything, not just Babylon in general. There's flood myths
They're
everywhere.
Different narratives. They have different stories because they're different cultures with different perspectives.
Exactly, but they're all about the danger of flooding. That's what the theme is.
They're all about the reality of a giant fucking flood.
Okay,
well, at that
Michael.
Time,
well, you are, my friend. You are entitled to believe that if you want.
Too far away from where they lived.
Michael!
Yeah, Michael. Man, if you want to believe that, that's cool, man. You're entitled to.
Can we just say, like,
I am entitled to believe it. It's also probably what
talking
happened.
about everything they know about the world, which is like
I can't make that
1
assertion,
kilometer.
Michael. I'm just saying you're entitled to.
I mean, can we just say for the record?
Can make that assertion.
And they haven't.
Can we just say for the record, most contemporary biblical scholars don't look at Genesis 1 through 11 as historical, right? I mean, it's called a primeval narrative. Sometimes it's called primeval history. So it's not. I mean, so I think, like, whether or not there's a real flood like this, I think is not. I mean that's the Genesis 1 through 11 is the stuff in the Hebrew Bible that's least concerned with history, right? So I mean,
Michael, the problem is Michael is asserting it is. He's asserting it was a real worldwide flood. And that's the thing. If Michael just said, well, it's just a reinterpretation that river valley civilizations had of floods, I'd go, absolutely. But he's asserting it was a real flood that flooded the entire earth and destroyed most of the world's...
Yeah, I find that, doubtful. I'm a Christian, but I would not ascribe to that view. I'm not saying there weren't floods and things like this, that as we're saying, there are flood narratives and things. But yeah, I don't really think the author is trying to actually tell us something historical in most of Genesis 1 through 11. I think it's sort of mythical, primeval narrative, as opposed to like some of the texts later in the Hebrew Bible that I think they are thinking that this stuff happened. Now, whether or not it did is another story. But I think the authors believe there's an Abraham and a David. I don't know that the same thing is true in Genesis 1 through 11.
But the issue was, it wouldn't just be 1 through 11. the whole Bible goes, and just speaking of the first Old Testament, it'd be hard making sense out of the whole of it if you don't interpret those things literally, making a connection, because it actually talks about after the flood, right? That certain nations came out of the sons of Noah, Noah's children. So for those who have who are trying to reinterpret, or I'm not going to whether it's right or wrong right now, but when you try to reinterpret that, it'll also put some strain on you trying to interpret. Like for instance, he said Moses said to the people, "Well, then we can. Why not question whether there even was a Moses who did what he did?" You see,
some people do. I mean, some people do. I mean, there are biblical scholars and archaeologists that question whether or not it was Moses. I mean, it's not a.
Wait a minute. Hang on a minute. Not only did they question it, not only did they question it, the majority of scholars don't believe there was such a person named Moses at all. There's no evidence for that.
Jeff, I don't think that's true. I think you wouldn't probably get, if you went to the Society of Biblical Literature, at the academic conference. I
But you see the point I'm making? The fact that you two just now are in a debate about what, but that's the point I'm making. I wasn't trying to make it about Moses. I was really making it about, this is the problem you'll have as a person, a religious person, or a person who accepts these scriptures to be truthful at all in any matters, trying to decipher what's true and what's not true.
I
trying to find a needle in the
I don't
haystack.
have that problem at all.
But not speaking of you. I'm saying in general. You see the confusion. You just talked about how many biblical
I think it's
scholars.
confusing. I think scholars look. We theological evidence and things like this, and I think what scholars will tell you is that that there seems to be some evidence for like the Davidic Solomonic kingdom, right? Like that's about as far back as we could go, that maybe there's evidence of.
What do you mean? There's no confusion? I'm saying there's disagreement with those within the religion about these things. Like, I don't even know if you are either Jewish, or Christian, Muslim. I'm speaking for those who are those, and not only just even within the Jewish or So, I mean, within the Christian tradition, as you just said. The fact that there's this type of disagreement proves my point. But if you ask them about other parts of the story that may be more acceptable, how do you connect it, right? When you get specific about, okay, this specific person was said to come from this specific person, but you just said this specific person, his ancestor, may not have really lived.
Yeah,
right? So this is what I mean. When you probe the consistency,
we don't have evidence for these people existing before, like, again, the earliest possible claims I've heard from archaeologists are like the Davidic Solomonic era. Now, is that saying that there wasn't Abraham? No. I mean, it's possible there was an Abraham,
Right.
But
someone who was David's great-great-great-great-grandfather.
Right. I mean, we don't have any evidence of it, but that doesn't mean it didn't exist. It just means
he brought in David as if that was supposed to at least prove not only that there was a David, but that
there was a David.
But this is my point. My point is that you're always going to push it back to a person you believe to be real, literal. That's my point. That's the point. That's the point I'm making. So then you can say you could question David's existence. Then you're gonna go back to some of his descendants. But that's the only point I'm making, is that it's gonna be difficult for anybody to try to tie the whole thing together historically.
I don't think it's difficult to tie the story together by saying.
I think going from Abraham on, it's pretty straightforward.
Michael. Yeah, I think Abraham is much more his history.
Yeah, you think. But I'm not asking so much about what you think. I'm talking about what is actually the case, accepted within the tradition, with scholars, right? Not just what one person or two people think about it.
They fight a lot.
Yeah, that's my point. The point is because they haven't yet settled what they actually believe, which is actually actual history. And then when you do parts of it and not others, people could always question, well, why do you hold this part and not that part? Why not just say it's all could be reinterpreted. None of those characters really lived, or none of those events really happened. Let's reinterpret the whole thing.
Well, I
Why
know,
stop there?
Talk to
it's
the
not.
people that produced the book over and over again. We're the publishers, basically.
Well, what I'm saying, there are certain sorts of stories. Okay, when Jesus tells parables, I don't assume every character in the parables existed.
See, you at least have a Jesus now. Now you at least don't question Jesus. See, you know
I
people do, right?
that
Question.
Jesus existed.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I'm not saying Abraham didn't exist. Okay, what I'm saying is we just have no historical evidence of it. Look, we have no historical evidence of most of this.
Why you believing somebody exists?
Yeah,
You have no historical
maintain
evidence.
healthy agnosticism.
Hold on. Why are you believing somebody
The factual
existed if
statement.
you have no historical evidence of it?
Look, there's a
I
story
have
here.
evidence
There's
of
a
it.
story. There's a
There's
tradition.
a story.
Yeah, there's a story. Now, could that
Achilles
Man,
probably.
Michael, hold on, one at a time. I'm asking Scott. He believed somebody existed. He said he could actually believe exists, but not necessarily have historical evidence of it. Why,
Like
Scott?
Achilles.
Mike, you just can't help.
Yeah, because there's a
You just
tradition.
can't help.
Okay, even though there's not evidence of Abraham, okay, outside the Bible, we don't have any archaeological evidence like we do for later Israelite kings and things. You do have the Bible, and there's this tradition, that there was this guy. Now, you can.
It also fits the politics of the Arabs.
Yeah, and there's other, people in the Abrahamic story that are ancient peoples and stuff. Now, you could say, okay, is Abraham a literal person? Okay, or is Abraham a character that's sort of historical fiction-like or something?
No,
that the
I'm not
author is
going what
making
you could
to
say,
prove a point.
Scott. I'm not going about what could be said. What you believe Abraham to be, you yourself is a historical figure, right? You are a figure in history. The way you exist, do you believe that Abraham, the way it's told,
I take the Abrahamic stories largely at face value, with the qualification that people writing ancient history, they embellish things, they stylize things. They don't write history the same way a modern.
I'm not questioning.
Harvard,
I'm not
right?
questioning. I'm not questioning the embellishment and all of that. Just the character himself. You actually said you believe exists.
Yeah, I have no problem believing in Abraham. Yeah.
I know you don't have a problem with it. That's not my point. My point is you actually said you don't necessarily have any evidence for him.
Right. Outside of the Bible, okay, the biblical witness, we don't have any evidence. No, that doesn't exist.
The Bible, so the Bible itself wouldn't be evidence. So you need.
No, that's literally the opposite of what you just said.
I'm saying it's the only evidence. I'm saying it's the only evidence we have is the text.
Okay,
now there are other characters in the Bible that are mentioned both inside in Israel's
all right,
history
slow down.
and outsiders.
Slow down. We only only get too far.
Michael!
Listen, hold on. So listen. So you do have evidence. You're saying you just don't have any other evidence outside of the Bible. You actually hold the Bible to be evidence of Abraham.
Yes.
I think the Bible clearly has a tradition of this person called Abraham.
Yes.
And then
You skate around this thing so well, man. You skate so well. You can't just say yes. You can't just say the Bible is the evidence of Abraham.
Yeah.
I'm sure I believe in the existence of Abraham.
Yeah. Now you went back to what you believe. But go ahead. I'm gonna leave it alone. I think everybody can kind of see the problem.
Michael!
Like, I just don't understand your point. Like,
I think everybody got my point here, and guess what? The people who know me know they're talking to a Christian person who believes. But my point is exactly what just happened. When I get somebody and sit them 1-to-1, who keeps saying things like, "Well, maybe this. Well, maybe I take this, but no. Let's get to okay. You said this person existed and this happened, but this didn't. Why this and not that? This is where the issue comes in. This is where the problem comes in."
Take that, Scott.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue. I think this is what you do with ancient literature, and there are certain stories I think that are meant, and certain ones that aren't, like as history, and some aren't. Job. Most scholars think Job is not meant to be a
The
story.
Jews say that. Yeah, they
I
say
think
that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
the other problem I wanted to point out with what I agree with Tim is that all the people from the Abrahamic religions can't even agree on which God is the right way to do God. The Muslims say that the Muslims say that the Christians are misguided and that the Jews don't acknowledge the proper God. The Judeans agree
Yeah, but they're also
that,
copying our religion.
well, yeah, but they don't believe that, Michael. That's what I'm saying. The problem is that they all the three theistic religions.
They agree they're trying to worship our God. They disagree as to how we think it should be done.
They don't think it's, but an Islamic person doesn't believe it's your God. Under the
no, they do.
Hadith,
They
this
do.
is about the names of the names of Allah. That Yahweh is just one of them.
They do believe that they're worshiping the same God that we worship. And
Yes, but they believe they believe they are worshiping the true one. You're just believing one of his manifestations.
No, they would say that I am worshiping it the wrong way.
Yeah, but it's just exactly. You're not doing it in the way.
But it is the self-same God. Meaning we all agree there's only one true God. He's not physical, created everything, all the same shebang, you know.
Well, there was one rabbi who said that Jews could actually pray in a mosque or worship in a mosque, I think.
Yes, that's true. That's true because we have consulted and investigated their theology, and we say that it is not in conflict with ours. We simply worship God differently than they do.
So Michael, you worship Allah? So Michael, you worship Allah?
I worship my God, which some people refer to as Allah.
This point, if you couldn't just say yes to it, then obviously you're not saying you worship the same God with all these other things.
Dude, if you can't be quiet when someone answers, you'll never know their answer.
I know you're not talking about being quiet, Michael.
You tell me what I said. My God!
This guy's knocking off.
I'm just listening to what you're saying, Michael. And you saying, oh, it's just the way we worship. It's not the being that we worship. We all worship the same way. They just have the issue with the way, the method.
Why is there so much? Why is there so much anti-Semitism, and why is there so much conflict between Arabs and Israelites? If they both
Israel. It's mostly Israel plus the Arabic.
There was anti-Semitism before the formation of Israel.
The Islamic fucking version of Judaism happens to be very aggressive towards the original Jews. Shut up if you want an answer.
But I'm just saying it has existed before the nation of Israel.
Yes.
Muslims have. There's been a lot of conflicts before.
Not before the nation of Israel. No. The nation of Israel goes back 1,500 years. We don't know how the Arabs treated the proto-Jews before 1500 BCE. That's not true.
No, I meant after Muhammad, and I'm saying.
After Muhammad made a claim that the Jews are worshiping God the wrong way, and that they're kind of okay, but you can also maybe kill them and enslave them in certain ways.
Still, you're not going to get anywhere with this because he's going to keep making it a battle of the Jewish way versus the. You're not going to get anywhere like that.
I'm not making a battle. You're asking why there's anti-Semitism in the Islamic community, and this is the answer.
And you're gonna disclaim everything.
But what I'm saying, if they agree that you worship the same God, Michael, why are they so hostile?
Well, today it's mostly political because we live in the land of Israel, and we fought. According to them, we persecuted and oppress their Arab brethren in Palestine. So in solidarity,
before the formation
they all
of Israel.
hate us.
Sorry, I meant before the formation of Israel, the current formation of Israel.
Oh, before the formation of the state? Then we were just second-class citizens. It was similar to how we existed in Europe, which is to say that our version of religion was wrong, and the new thing, Islam or Christianity, is the correct path, and that these fools can be treated badly because they are they're not listening to God properly. And then the Jews were put in ghettos, or they were shuffled around, or sometimes kidnapped.
To rephrase and recorrect my point is that, okay, let me rephrase it. Neither of the three monotheisms, Abrahamic traditions, seem to agree on what's the right way to worship.
And it's not only that. It's not only that. We also disagree as to what the nature of God is. Because some say he's triune, some say he's not. So
the
it's not even
Muslims and
just
the Jews agree that the Christians are wrong about the triune nature of God.
That's what I'm
So
saying. But they all came
yes.
from the same source. That's why I find it problematic.
Yeah, they came from our source. If you want to know how our source is to be read, ask us. We're the publishers.
I thought Abraham was from Ur.
Abraham was from, he wasn't from, or his brother died in Ur Kasdim. Abraham was from Aram Naharaim, which was in like Syria. He was Babylonian. He lived, according to the Bible, he lived during the era of the Babylonian pyramid, which was like the Tower of Babel.
The Zechariah or whatever it's.
Whatever it was, and he left because he was preaching monotheism and they didn't like him, and he ran off to Canaan, and that's where he settled.
Is that the way the story went, Michael? He was preaching monotheism, and he left, and he kicked him. Is that how you read it? I don't see that anyway.
That's how. All right, that's the story.
I think Michael
the Arabs say,
what would be fair
Abraham,
to say?
Isaac, and Ishmael, because they believe that he worshipped Allah.
Yeah, Michael, there's no like, I think in the text of Genesis, the idea that Abraham was preaching monotheism, and that's why he leaves Ur the Chaldeans. That's not in the. No,
no, that's not exactly true.
It's not in the text.
I read it in the text.
This place was called out of the land of
a million times. Like
it's not.
I can show it to you. I can show it to you.
No, look,
I'm just saying traditionally people think he came from Ur.
Okay.
There's no mention of Ur.
Saying read between the lines. Okay. That's possible, but I mean, like, you know, it doesn't seem like.
Ur Kasdim, by the way, Ur Kasdim is a transmission.
Anyway, getting back to my point, you would think that if God divined it from the same source, he would have tried to show some easier way for people, but they seem to be all fighting. I mean, the Arabs and the
it's a fine way. The Jews know the story. We keep the
Muslims and the Israelites can't even agree on the sons of Abraham.
Copied our story and decided to practice it a different way. They're just copying our book and acting out different parts of it in the way that they want to, rather than the way that we say you should.
Like not the stories from the Old Testament.
How can you
in other mythologies before Michael?
It's not even just as simple as you just said it, because they don't even hold to what we call a New Testament. So it ain't just
That's right. The New Testament was fan fiction.
Okay, well,
but
don't just say you might believe that. Hold on. Don't. I'm just saying. My point is, don't just make it seem like you have a bunch of other religions just copying the Old Testament, and that's all that they're doing. There's more.
Two big religions.
Say it again.
Two big religions: Christianity and Islam.
Yeah, I think to say
like
we're doing. I think
remove all references which are sourced in the Bible from Christianity and Islam, and see what you have remaining.
No, what I'm saying is this. Okay, I'm saying I think what, for instance, the early Christians did, which they were all Jews at first, is they thought that something about Jesus was fulfilling the prophecies, right? And that's why Jesus is walking around with 12 Hebrew men, right? It looks like symbolic 12 tribes of Israel, things like that. So they're sort of saying, okay, just like the prophets reinterpret, kind of give different glosses on Torah, right? And you'd have a different kind of faith, right? Like the Samaritans, at the time, like they only held to the 5 books of Moses. They didn't hold the prophets to be canonical. You would have a different religion, right? I mean, the faith would look different. I think what you have in Christianity is an example of these people saying, look, we're reinterpreting this, we're reinterpreting the climax of the prophecy through this Jesus moment experience. So that's kind of different than, because they're doing some original things.
Okay, fine. You want to say what they're doing is similar to Judaism? That's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not only just that. Hold on. It's not only just that. After the story of Noah, the prophets that continued to come along, according to the story, and the people, up until the time of Jesus, continued to believe those things will literally happen. They never reinterpret anything. So can we stop just acting like this view that you have, Michael, was just ancient to the Jews even after Noah. This view you have is modern. It's new.
No.
Michael, the other
It's
thing I
new.
want to point out too
My
is
view
that
is
your
at
whole-
the
if-
most
Michael-
conservative, 2,500 years old.
Michael, I was going to say to the point that if you're holding to the view that the Israelite religion came first, then I would put it to you that the henotheistic tribal religion of Israel came before
Yeah.
that, and that
Yeah,
should be
probably.
viewed. That was first, and that's better.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, no, that's part of our history. That's part of our history. It's in the book.
But it came before, so wouldn't that be better?
Yeah,
Why
that's
don't you
but
guys
the
start-
Abrahamic era. Abraham referred to El Elyon. That's
No,
that's
but what
supposed to be
about
against what,
Baal and Moloch and all those other ones that the Canaanites worshipped? I mean, they were all the other tribal
we
gods.
don't do those anymore. Those are bad.
But what
Don't
I'm
do
saying
that.
is they came before, so I'm saying you're appealing to.
Yeah, there's a lot of
that
stuff
yours
that
was
came before
first.
the Jews. The Jews acknowledged a lot of things came before them.
So could it be
But that's what I'm
said that
saying.
the
You can't
Jews is
just.
just
What I'm trying to
copying?
say.
Could it be said that the Jews are just borrowing and copying or mistaking what was before them? I mean,
I don't care. I literally don't care if you say that. I don't think that's the case.
Well,
I think
that's
that,
what I'm
I
saying.
think
That's
that
what
was,
Michael,
I think
you're
like
saying because
everyone
yours-
figured out theft. I think sacrifice was a common practice.
So basically-
I don't know what things are like specifically God telling the Jews how to do it the right way versus this is what people are doing and we need to fit in.
Yeah, so basically
but
what
I
you're
mean
just
that-
showing now,
sorry.
Michael, is
Sorry,
just
go on,
that
Tim.
you just picking and choosing what you choose to believe in.
No, we have
Yeah.
the publishers.
You say what?
It's our book.
I'm not even talking. I'm not talking about
You
whose
know
book
that,
it is.
Tim. Jesus.
I'm not even talking about whose book it is. I'm just saying you're
Jesus
showing
tell
at this
you
point.
if Hamlet is literal or fiction.
No, I'm not even going to Hamlet right now.
Our book. We are the publishers.
I'm not. My movement. I stick to one thing. This whole idea. This is what you're showing me right now. You have a certain view and opinion about the whole matter, and you're sticking to it. You don't even care about evidence or
No,
anything
I've
like that.
investigated all of the claims. I've investigated them all.
You investigated all the claims, but obviously you still hold
This
the
is the
fact that
most reasonable.
even
This
though I
conforms
just
to
said
truth.
the people before you could say to you that you're misinterpreting or you are wrongly adjusting the tradition.
Yeah,
You say you don't care. You don't
it's a
care.
free
That was
country.
your response just now.
It's
I don't
America.
care.
You can think whatever you think.
That's my point. My point is you're pretty much showing that I believe what I want to believe. And that's cool.
Yes, you do.
Never
I
held
was
that
just
there's
saying,
any
Michael,
valid,
was that-
justifiable argument. But go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Michael, that your argument before was saying that the Christians and the Muslims did borrow from Israelite theology.
Right.
And yes, they did. But
Yes.
then you could say that the same point. So did the concept of Yahweh, who may have been part of the original tribal gods.
You could say that.
So I'm saying that they borrowed from that. So that's what I'm
You
saying.
could say
So
that.
you can't really say that yours is superior when there were things that came before that. that
No,
were
I
probably
can
better.
I can explain how this book is positing a new philosophical theory of God.
But how come Jesus comes in the third place on our hero score list that I have as a profile picture now? You have like Odysseus, Theseus, I mean Zeus is even there, Robin Hood even
I
has
like
13
those guys.
points. And the points are
Odysseus
basically
probably
resurrection,
also
he's the savior, he's the son of
Odysseus
God.
probably existed.
That's like the score
Odysseus was
point.
real. You know Odysseus is real, right? So is Achilles.
No, we don't know.
I love
There
the
might be
heroes.
So is Homer.
Mike is trolling.
I don't
right.
think you've
Mike,
investigated
Michael's
enough
trolling right
history.
now.
I'm not trolling. No. Achilles and Odysseus are real people.
Possibly. We don't know, Michael.
I
No,
don't
but
know if
Troy
it's
was
the
record
right
of
thing
that.
either.
We know that Troy may have been in a place, but and it's
No,
buried,
Troy
and
was
then-
100% a place. We found Troy. We have the ruins. They thought it maybe wasn't a place, but they found it, and they even know when it was destroyed. There was a period in history. They called it like the Bronze Age apocalypse. Because society had
Talking about
progressed
the
to a
sea
certain degree,
peoples.
and it regressed.
Yeah, and
Yes,
Berg is
sea people.
real there for
The sea people, the sea
Scrooge
people.
McDuck. Yeah.
Very good,
which I
very
think
good.
may have been
This is what
Phoenicians, but
happened.
they're not sure.
Exactly. They don't exactly know who the sea peoples are.
They were just a bad guy.
Yeah, it could have been just like a nonsense fairy tale. But there definitely was a
Oh,
Troy.
that would
There
be
was a
so
Trojan
Phoenician.
War. There was a